Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for Fear the Walking Dead Season 2. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to make my review last week for the mid-season premiere Grotesque. I was away on vacation, but I am back now and I am ready to continue my reviews of Fear the Walking Dead as it continues in the second half of the second season. And what this video is going to be doing is it's going to be reviewing the most recent episode, which is Los Muertos, which I believe stands for the dead in Spanish. If you are not caught up with Fear the Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I would exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. And hopefully you can hear me okay. My voice is a little hoarse from being at a concert on Saturday. And it was definitely a good concert. I went to see Ray Lynn, who was a competitor on The Voice. She did a very wonderful job. And like I said, I was cheering a lot for her because she did a good job. So my voice is a little bit gone at this point, but I'm going to push through it. And my overall impression of the episode when looking at this ninth episode, I thought it was better than last week. I think the two episodes, because I watched them back to back, make a lot of sense. I think they flow very well together. I think that Fear the Walking Dead coming back, these first two episodes were definitely a lot stronger than the original first two episodes of the second season when it first premiered its second season. I think these two are doing a lot better, but I still feel like there's a lot of things that Fear the Walking Dead is missing, and I'm actually going to do a video kind of analyzing why I think people aren't necessarily as excited about Fear the Walking Dead, why the viewership's going down, some of the problems, but also some of the benefits, because I do think it is still a good show that people should tune into if it is what they like. I do see some of the benefits of the show. I think the actors and actresses do a wonderful job, and I wish that there would be more going on, because I think it does have potential. I just think that they're having a hard time getting to that point. And in this episode, we're focusing on Nick again. So we had Nick in the previous episode who was alone, found a community, and he's still with that community. And we also focus on what happens with Madison, Alicia, Ophelia, and Strand. So leading off from Nick, of course, Nick finds that community in Tijuana, Mexico. He's introduced to Luciana, who is played by Denai Garcia, a wonderful, wonderful actress. I remember her from Prison Break. And we also meet Dr. Alejandro. And basically, this community is, what you find out later in the episode is that it really is, in a sense, a very religious community. It's, in a sense, working off this idea of the Book of Revelations, really looking at this being the end of the world, this being, we're the chosen few that are going to continue from here. This is our home, figuring out the end of the world kind of thing. And what they end up doing is throughout the episode, we see this community is struggling. We see that they have very little water, they have very little food, very little medicine. It seems like a great place, but really there are a lot of things wrong with it. And what they actually do is that when somebody's infected, or if somebody's dying, like say they get bit, or say they're dying from something like an illness or something, then they actually sacrifice themselves and become infected in order to protect the community, because in a sense they're walled in, and then they have this area with the infected inside, and in a sense it protects people from maybe coming in and attacking them, because you would have to deal with the infected first. And this guy at the beginning of the episode goes through the bus, like in the trailer, goes out into this crowd of infected and just gets devoured. And you're kind of like, whoa, pretty intense. But on the other hand, you're thinking to yourself, man, I bet you they don't realize that you die no matter what. I did wonder that, because obviously if you die any other way except for a gunshot to the head or something happening to your brain, you're going to come back. And part of me wonders if they don't realize that. Like, why would you walk out into a crowd and go like this, open your arms and let yourself be eaten. That's not really a pleasant way to pass on, but obviously I think they don't realize that yet. So that's how they die. And again, it's kind of like seen as a cycle, in a sense that this is something that you do. I think it's all part of the end plan. And basically they're struggling to get by. Now there is like a supermarket where people are stationed at. Those bandits that we kind of met back in the previous episode. I think it has to do with them. But basically, Luciana and Nick go over to this supermarket in order to get supplies. And while they're there, they come to see that, these guys really can take advantage of people. They have a supermarket there. They have a lot of guns. They pretty much are dealing. They used to be, gangs that would deal drugs, that you would think about that we have nowadays. It would be that kind of a gang. But now that the world is kind of gone and there's nobody there to manage these things, they've, in a sense, taken over in that area. So they make an agreement that in exchange for some, medicine, other things, they'll give them a cart and they can go around and whatever they can fit in the cart is what they can take. And of course, the deal used to be 2 carts, but now it's only 1, which is very shocking to Luciana. And while they're inside, Nick ends up stealing this candy bar. Which is kind of silly, you think, well, what, you can't put it at the top of the shopping cart? Like, I don't know what his point was there. I mean, what he ended up doing with it later was he gave it to the little girl whose father died at the beginning of the episode. It was that guy who sacrificed himself to the infected. And, they, of course, see him do this and they kind of wait until he's getting ready to leave and then they stop him and, they reveal, yeah, you're a thief. And Nick actually ends up using the guy's sister, the leader, I guess. I think his sister is also an addict. That was my understanding of that. I think she might be addicted to OxyContin was what Nick was trying to get at, I think. Because Nick basically says, hey, I found out that, is that your sister in there? I see she's suffering. I see that, she's going to need some things and we can give them to her. So in a sense, he kind of brokers a deal independently, from what anybody else would have wanted in exchange for giving them OxyContin, I guess, that they would give them a second cart, which they agreed to do. So Nick really talked himself out of that, and I think that Nick has probably been in situations like that in the past. Where he's had to talk himself out of those kind of situations. I hope not, but it seems like he knew what he was doing. So I think he might have had experience with that in the past, and they're able to take the extra cart back with them. So at this point, this community is, again, still struggling, and what Dr. Alejandro reveals at the end of the episode is that they have very little supplies. They can't bargain. So it makes me wonder if there's going to be some kind of conflict later down the road. And it's also revealed, which is very interesting in this episode, that Dr. Alejandro has rumor has it that he has survived a bite. And we see, like, on his one shoulder, there's a chunk of his flesh missing. And Luciana told Nick, in a sense, this is what the community is. This is what it stands for. This kind of end of the world's religious kind of believe that this is the end of the world. And that because he survived a bite, some of them are just meant to survive. They won't die no matter what. So that's kind of the thought process. Obviously, I have to wonder, is that the truth? Is it not the truth? I think there's a lot of things that definitely need to be looked into, and I hope they reveal a little bit more as time goes on, because he is definitely missing flesh from his body, but how it went missing, we don't know. And Luciana, she told Nick that she saw the bite happen, so I don't know what that's going to mean. I don't know if she's lying, if she's telling the truth, if maybe they're just mistaken about, maybe it was a person who, was starving and everything and then bit him. It could have been that. So it's hard to say, but I'm really interested to see how they'll flesh that story out in the coming episodes. But what we also have going on is Madison, Strand, Alicia, and Ophelia. And we see that all of them are feeling very different things. They go back, they try to get back on the boat, but the Abigail is gone. It's been stolen. So that's kind of unfortunate. We're not going to be going back onto the boat. But I think that, in a sense, is also a good thing because some of the episodes were very slow. when you dealt with just hanging out on the water. We kind of knew that wasn't going to last. But the Abigail's gone. They leave a message for Nick, and then they go to this hotel. And when they get to the hotel, they kind of split off. Strand and Madison stay at the bar, and then Alicia and Ophelia go and start checking the rooms to gather supplies. And we see that everybody's feeling different things. Strand is kind of just, I mean, I think he's a little upset about his boat, but he's kind of just trying to figure out what's going on. I think he's, trying to see how everybody's doing, especially Madison, because what's really going on with Madison in this episode is that obviously she is very upset because Nick has left, as we know, and that's got to be hard for her. That is her son. That is somebody that she loves and cares about. And I think that, it's definitely something that would take a toll on any mother, whether their son, or daughter would just up and leave for no reason, never want to contact them again, whether they died, things like that. That would be hard for any mother to deal with. And we actually get to delve a little bit into Madison's past in this episode. Madison reveals that she grew up, I believe it was in Alabama. She grew up in the South. She had a little bit of a Southern accent that was showing through while she was drinking, because the two of them basically start drinking, Madison and Strand. They just grab the liquor that's left in the bar area and they start to drink to kind of, de-stress, try to figure everything out. And we come to find out that she tended bar down in Alabama to get her way through college. And we also find out just, how things have been affecting Madison in her past life. It turns out that her husband, who we were informed of in the last episode, died in a car accident when Madison went to visit Nick in rehab and informed him of this. We find out that's not really the whole story. That Stephen, I think the name is Stephen, that basically Madison's husband and the father of Nick and Alicia had his own demons. I wasn't sure whether it was that he was an alcoholic, whether he also did drugs, or whether he was, maybe just depressed or suicidal, whatever the deal was. Because we remember in the last episode when Nick was talking about his father, how he said, well, you weren't really there, Dad. You would go in the room, you would lay in the room, and you wouldn't really acknowledge me. Which, again, I don't know if that's because he was high or, on drugs or alcohol, or whether he was suffering from depression. I don't really know what the circumstances are. But we find out that he died in a car accident, but there's more to it. According to Madison, he basically veered into oncoming traffic and died. Now, whether he did that because he committed suicide or whether because he was just so high or drunk that he did it is hard to say. But it's not just a simple accident like Madison said. And apparently she's kept that hidden from the kids. She did not tell them that. And Madison kind of goes into a little bit of detail about her past, kind of realizing that Steve had his demons and they passed to Nick. And I can understand, for Madison, how tough that might be, because as a parent or as a sibling or as a husband, wife, whatever you are, you want to look out for your family. You want to do things that will help them. And when you fail to do that and you keep losing people like Madison has, I can understand how that can be upsetting and frustrating. So Madison really struggles in dealing with that. And that's why I think Nick leaving made it even harder. But they basically are venting. They continue to drink, and they get drunker and drunker as time goes on, of course. And then they just start, Madison's throwing glasses against the wall, and Strand starts to play piano. And while that's going on, you have Alicia and Ophelia up in the different hotel rooms trying to look for supplies. And Alicia, I think that she was really, the star of this episode in a sense, along with Nick. I think they were the strongest performances of this episode, because it was very nice to see Alicia finally coming out of this, shell in a sense, if you will, because we kind of seen her not really taking a step forward. We really seen her in the background doing different things, being a little naive, like with talking with Jack. But now she's really trying to keep this group together. I mean, you have Strand, who's kind of just indifferent. You have Madison, who's struggling from losing Nick. And you have Ophelia, who is struggling from losing her father. Obviously, Daniel Salazar has not popped up again. We don't know if he's dead or alive, but he's not with the group, and the group presumes him dead. And that's hard on Ophelia. And Ophelia basically, at this point, is not really feeling a lot of hope. But Alicia is. Alicia says, look, when you're down, you just keep fighting. You just keep going. And I liked seeing her say that, and I liked seeing her take on that role. And I think that a lot of that has to do with just her young spirit. You know, I think that you find with younger people, there is more of that drive to keep going and keep fighting. And I think that a lot of that just has to do with that mindset of that age. So I think that it was really nice to see her starting to develop a little more, to see her taking more of a leadership role when the group was down. I think that's really who she is. She is a fighter deep down, and I can't wait to see her continue to develop. But basically, while they're upstairs, it turns out there is hot water, so she takes a shower. Then she comes out and finds out Ophelia is gone. She doesn't know where Ophelia is at. And then all of a sudden she looks outside and she starts to see the infected falling from the balconies of the hotel rooms. So there are a lot of infected inside the hotel. It is a pretty big hotel. It's not just a small little, building. It's a pretty big and tall building. And of course, other thing that's going on is that while Strand is playing the piano, inside another store across the street were infected. They hear this noise, and then they start to come out and start to, basically charge at the hotel. So you have Alicia trying to find Ophelia. She ends up running into infected in the stairwell, like the stairwell that you would try to escape from if there was a fire or something like that. So she's got like a lot of infected surrounding her, and then the infected come in and they surround Madison and Strand, and the two of them basically die behind the bar. So at this point where the episode ends, we're ending in a cliffhanger. We don't know whether they're going to make it out of there, what's going to happen with Madison and Strand, because they're stuck behind a bar. You have Ophelia who's missing. You have Alicia who's on a floor in a hotel that's going to be covered with infected. And you have Nick who, again, I think is still trying to find his place. And I'm definitely going to do another video that's kind of looking at some of these characters. I'm going to be doing that video that's going to be talking about some of the things that Fear the Walking Dead is doing great, but why also it's not, getting the same kind of recognition, and why it's not necessarily getting as much of a viewership as maybe The Walking Dead is. So stay tuned for those. Stay tuned for videos from Z Nation as well as The Walking Dead. With that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.